Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here, and to those watching online, thank you for joining us. My name is Alyssa Maurice, Director of Research here at the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy at Stockton University. Part of the mission of the Hughes Center is to provide a forum for civil discourse and to encourage people to get engaged in the democratic process. In accordance with that mission, the center has sponsored candidate forums for the United States Senate race in New Jersey. These forums are hosted by the College Democrats and College Republicans here at Stockton, who developed questions that their members wanted to know from their respective candidates. We also took question submissions online. For today's forum, we have the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, Curtis Bashaw, here with us. He will be speaking with the president of Stockton's chapter of College Republicans, Matthew Moore. Toward the end of their discussion, we'll also take some questions from the audience. Mr. Bashaw, thank you so much again for being here. And Matthew, I will now hand it over to you.
All right. Hello, my name is Matthew Moore. I'm the chairman of the Republican Club. So, would you like to tell us about who you are and what you're trying to run for, Mr. Bashaw?
I would be happy to. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Great. I'm a South Jersey person, grew up in Camden County, Cherry Hill. Started working at the Jersey Shore when I was 15 years old. We went to Ocean City and then Cape May. I loved hospitality, and after college, I came back to Cape May and started my first business, opening the Virginia Hotel in 1989. It was an abandoned building. I had to beg my dad to help me, and we went to 6 banks. They all said no. They didn't believe my idea would work. But the 7th bank said yes, and we did the project. So we started with a couple dozen employees in the late 80s and built our company, Cape Resorts, over time through the renovation of Congress Hall, other properties, and now out on Long Island to over 1,100 teammates. So I have loved working in the free enterprise system, learned the responsibility of making a payroll every 2 weeks, bringing people together around a vision of service and building a microeconomy effectively. Because our business now supports the mortgage or rent payments of 800 families, cars, clothing, food, college tuition, Stockton tuition. And so to be part of that has really made me appreciate our free enterprise system and what we can accomplish if we trust our citizens and let them grow the economy. And it led me also to wanting to get involved for a couple reasons. First of all, I am a pretty fiscally conservative person. I believe that we're not going to spend our way to prosperity. We're not going to regulate our way to innovation and growth. We're not going to tax our way to fiscal solvency as a country. I believe that we need to grow our economy to be strong and healthy. So those issues are important. Secondly, I'm in hospitality. We are welcoming people every day to our properties, inviting them to make themselves at home and have a good time, to build their memories there. We want them to come back every year and build traditions. So when you think about the acrimony in our politics, that's been something that is, I think, been unsettling. I worry if we're so divided. I don't think that was the structure intended for America. We really were invented, so to speak, almost 250 years ago because we wanted to put our citizens first. We wanted to trust our citizens. We wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Here you're innocent until proven guilty. And the freedoms that we have in America of speech, conscience, worship, enterprise, assembly, all those freedoms come with the price that they have to be shared equally with your neighbors with whom you might not agree. You might have different points of view. That's the beauty of freedom in its messiness. It allows a space for people to have other points of view. So, I thought about this acrimony and said, I'm in hospitality. I want all of our citizens to feel at home in their community, in their county, in their state. on their campus, in their country. And we need to have more of a practical approach of people that want to work with everybody around a vision for our future to get things done. So I jumped in January, and it's been the race of a lifetime for me. One of the hardest things I've ever done, one of the most invigorating things I've ever done. We're up to about 76,000 miles on the car since January 15th. I think that's pretty good. If we get to 100,000, I'm asking for a platinum card for the Parkway and the Turnpike. I want some special deal. So that's a little bit about me, and we can carry on.
All right, I guess we'll roll into the questions. So the first question is, college education is starting to become unaffordable to people, and colleges continue to raise their tuition by a significant percentage each year. What would be your plans to address the issues of college tuition becoming affordable?
You know, a lot of things are becoming unaffordable in an inflationary time, first of all. I don't know if you know, but I was on the board of Stockton for 12 years. When I started on the board of directors here, about 2006, I believe, Stockton was 2,000 students. There were no dorms. It was pretty much of a day school. And when I finished in 2018, 12 years later, we had this campus center. I was flashing back to the plans for this building when I was sitting here waiting. And it was 8,000, was 8,000 strong, a university with a lot of residential life. So obviously in any enterprise, whether it's an educational enterprise, a private enterprise like our hotels, one thing you have to do is have the discipline of cost accountability. And sometimes in bigger organizations where there's not an owner, one person responsible, you can have bloat build up. It happens in my company as it's gotten bigger. You know, the home office, all my back-of-house departments come in with 10 or 12% budget proposals, but we know we can't grow our revenues by that much. So there's always that tension that I think will help control costs. I think marketplaces speak. If my prices get too high for the market, my occupancy falls. And you've got to be competitive in the marketplace. I don't care what you're selling, even if you're selling an education. So students have choices, and I think that we will see as the educational market is stressed because of inflation, like a lot of businesses. Hopefully we see some affordability creeping back in. A few things that I really like are, you know, you want transparency, especially as you're thinking as a family with your parents or whomever in making an investment. And I always have thought that it might be a very interesting thing for you to buy your education, to have some sort of price, less variety of price year by year, to get more certainty about the investment looking ahead so that the school's making a commitment for you, like this is what 4 years is going to cost you. Obviously, if you take time off, if you take 6 years, it depends, but I think there's opportunities there, and we need to make sure that the whole transparency issue with the scholarships and the cost of the academics are working in consort. We have a lot of loan programs. You know, I struggle with just wiping out debt that benefits some people against others. You know, you've got people that opted not to go to college that, you know, their parents are paying taxes too, and it gets into an equitable situation. I think we need to be open and transparent, including the sales process of signing somebody up for school, that this is what the cost really is. Here's what your loan's going to cost you if you take a loan. Here's the different plans. So I believe the market will help resolve this. I think that we have had, this institution has just grown. I'm so proud of it. I see other universities in New Jersey also in a dynamic place of growth and opportunity. And I think the last comment is that making sure that We have capacities that meet demand in a way that we're not wasting money. And I think one of the areas that I've heard about so much on this campaign all over our state is really supporting and honoring vocational choices as well as more traditional four-year college bachelor's degree courses, because there are shortages in a lot of the trades, and you know, I think that you can make a lot of money right now as an electrician, and to mix that training with an academic program that's teaching you how to market and how to run a business could be transformative. There's so many opportunities, but we've kind of boxed ourselves that the trades are here and the schools are here, and I think there's opportunities to really integrate that in a clever way and create more job opportunities. One last thought on this, and we'll keep rolling here, but you know, instead of having an actual loan, if you had when I raise money for projects to do a real estate deal, I'll get debt, which is I owe them that money, period. I'll also raise equity. And equity is from an investor that says, you're going to own a part of this with me, and if we do well, you're going to get paid this. This is your split. And if we don't, well, so the equity can lose money more easily than the lender. The lender has the security of the loan document or often a mortgage. What I'm saying is, you know, schools are promising a pathway to greater opportunity. And is there a way to make a partnership there that is a commitment of your future earnings instead of an actual loan? So, you know, if the school's graduates don't do well, the school doesn't do as well. But if they do, now that's hard for a college to be an equity investor, but schools do raise endowments. There are scholarship funds. So starting to think about things maybe in between an actual grant and a formal loan, what's in the middle there that could be a clever way to put people on the same team in terms of the long-term success of the education.
All right, thank you. So the next question relates to the tax problem, because New Jersey has the 4th highest corporate income tax rate of 9% in the nation, and many of these big corporations may leave New Jersey in the next few years, and then we'll lose jobs. So what would be the issues or plans that you would try to address here?
Well, I would lower that tax, personally. That would be my plan. I think it's not competitive. Now, I'm running for the U.S. Senate. I'm not running for governor or the state legislature, so that's who's going to deal with that state tax. But I think in general, we want to be competitive. And, you know, New Jerseyans, there's a little bit of an exit from our state, and it's a fabulous state. So, you know, I'm running for Senate because I'm not giving up on New Jersey. I like to tell people I can't pick up my hotels, Congress Hall or the Virginia, and move them to North Carolina. They're there. So I'm here. And I think that we can do a lot better. But if I have a choice, I would err on the side of less taxes is better than more taxes generally, because I trust people to help use their money to grow things.
All right, thank you. The next question was submitted by the Stockton student. It goes, do you see fiscal restraint as an important part of policymaking going forward? And is balanced budget mostly a historical idea?
Well, it better not be a historical idea, or you guys are going to be broke. So I think that $35 trillion is a lot of money, and we haven't had, and we live in election cycles. Same issue with public companies. You know, public companies are reporting their earnings, which affects their stock price, you know, on a quarterly basis. So they're naturally driven to a short-term viewpoint. Same with election cycles. So if all politicians are thinking about just the next 4 years, they're going to be always tempted to give away more stuff than they will to take the medicine of being budget-driven and fiscally responsible. That's a reason I got involved. I would be more of a fiscal hawk. I don't think that, I said earlier, we can spend our way to prosperity. I think it becomes a race to the bottom. So I would hope through growth and through spending discipline and bringing some business sense to the governments and these bureaucratic agencies that we can get back to the discipline of working towards a balanced budget.
All right. Then, per the Washington Post, Gen Z has nearly 42 million 18 to 27-year-olds eligible to vote per 2022 census data. With that being said, why should Gen Z vote for you?
Because I'm looking for the future. I want you guys to have prosperity. The whole point in our Constitution, in that preamble, you know, it was justice, common defense, domestic tranquility, general welfare, and to preserve the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our prosperity, you know, the next generation. And that's you. Like, we have to pass this along, and I think that we can only do that if we are talking about the future. So working on debt, making sure that somebody now has the courage to talk about Social Security's health and longevity, that trust fund, Medicare, these two sacred trusts. You can't take away benefits from people who have paid into it for 30 or 40 years. They're counting on it, right? So we've got to work now to make sure it's going to work for you by making hard decisions for the future. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm going to go there to work for, because my own businesses, I never, you know, I own long-term. I think, you know, we have a responsibility to take that long-term view, and a lot of our politicians take a short-term view. So I'm on your team. That's why you should vote for me.
All right. This was another question that was submitted online by a student attendee. We recently saw a major decline in teaching jobs because they were forced to be laid off. How do you believe we can get those jobs back without a funding crisis?
Well, really, again, there's a supply and demand issue. I think that, you know, you need to make sure that we may not be able to afford certain classroom sizes. We've got to work together in an efficient way to, you know, property taxes in New Jersey are among the highest in the country. And the primary driver of that has been one of the best public school systems in the country in New Jersey. So we're proud of our education. It's important, but is it bloated? Can we save money? How do you save money if everything's sacred and we can't ever look at the discipline of how to cut? I have a farm with my husband, and I love to work out there as a stress reliever. And one of the things I love to do is prune things, especially deciduous trees and fruit trees. But you learn that that tree is going to be healthier if you chop off some branches every now and again. And that pruning can make things stronger. So again, it's always hard to cut a budget. Everybody always wants to spend more, and everyone's going to tell you we have to have this. But if you don't have the discipline, you end up becoming sort of sodden and heavy, and you lose your edge. So I would really, I think that we need to make sure our school systems are run as businesses, and that every position isn't a sacred cow and everybody gets an extra 5% or 10% each year. And I think it takes on a life of its own.
All right. So you are a hotel entrepreneur with experience in real estate and property and hospitality. How did your career prepare you to run for Congress? Can you elaborate on how your career in business makes you different from not only your opponent, Andy Kim, but not other politicians?
Well, I, as an entrepreneur, getting my projects done, had to sell people and bring disparate people together to get to the same place at the same time. So Congress Hall was a big, huge, almost, 200-year-old hotel in the middle of Cape May, sitting vacant on a 4-acre parcel in a little village right on the water. So I'm like, I want to fix it up. Well, it's on the water, so there's environmental regulations. 2, it was historic, so there's historical preservation interests. 3, it was 200 years old, so it needed a lot of shoring up from a construction official's perspective. And then the fire guys, they didn't like those beautiful open historical stairs. So to get this project done, we had to get all those different people to agree to the same vision. I had to work across the aisle, so to speak, and sell them on how we work together to satisfy each other's needs, but around a common vision. And I think that's the work that happens in Congress. We need people that aren't going to stand on one side or the other, on the extremes, just yelling at each other and being on social media making noise. We need people that are going to roll up their sleeves, sit around a table, and hammer things out to get things done. I love to do that. I learned that in my business. So I think that's a big takeaway. And I also learned that you got to work with a lot of different people and make compromises to get things done. You can't just always, it's not my way or the highway in a country like ours. So I think I'm very well prepared. In contrast to my opponent, a lot of people will talk about public service, and I think public service is great. We are all citizens of this country. In a country that's self-governing, we are the government, right? It's incumbent upon us, of the people, by the people, for the people, to be engaged. So for me, I took 12 years at Stockton. I ran a state agency for 2 years. I worked on the reopening task force for our county. Along the way, I built a business. And when you think about those 800 families that depend on our business, we also not only support those families, but we pay taxes, a lot of them, to fund the government. So that is a public service too. Taxpayers are public servants in that they're paying the bills. So the fact is, some people choose a career in it, and I think that's great. We have firemen, police, we have EMTs, we have school teachers, public university teams. We also have the military. Where I get skeptical, if someone spends all their time in a bureaucracy in Washington with academics and they haven't been on the front lines of the economy doing real stuff. And I think it's important, you know, for generals to come back and stay involved and do work who really fought battles, or for business people to go to Washington. So, you know, my opponent's more of a career politician, somebody that great education, went right to work in Washington, has always gotten a government paycheck. You know, I'm a guy that signed the front side of a paycheck 26 times a year for 35 years for thousands and thousands of people. So that's a difference. I don't think it's a bad thing to have people that devote their lives to government work, but I think we need diversity in our government to make it healthy and vibrant and represent all of us.
Okay, thank you. So your website, socials, and most information from your campaign proudly shares that you are a married gay man. Will you mind sharing a little bit about your experience coming out and working in the business industry as a gay man? How has your experience on the campaign trail been impacted as a Republican gay man?
Great question. I think my whole life, I learned pretty early on that, you know, I wanted to integrate my life. I was going to be Curtis Bashaw. That's who I was going to be. And you know, when I was raised in a very conservative Christian family, I knew not everyone was down with that lifestyle. They didn't think it was God's plan. I didn't, and I found my own way, and then realized quickly that, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions out there. People want to put people in a box. And, you know, if folks from my background thought that all gay people were a certain way, they weren't right. It just wasn't accurate. Similarly, you know, when I was involved in the early days of AIDS and New York City and some activism, I realized that, you know, those activists were stereotyping all Christian people as being, say, hateful, when I knew a lot of them weren't. They just had a different point of view. So for me, I never wanted to be trading on one identity issue. I was going to be Curtis. And I think we risk, by subsetting ourselves into smaller and smaller aggrieved parties, we need to be empathetic to everyone's journey and their different experience in life, give each other the space, but we should be tolerant both ways, I guess is what I'm saying. So I think that I've been, it was easier in New York in the late 80s, early 90s to stay closeted than it was in Cape May, New Jersey, because that was a small town and I was doing a business. And so, I'll never forget when a banker guy said to me, man, I think my son might be going through what you're going through. Would you mind talking to him? I don't know what to say. And that's because I was living my life in this little town. And so, all of us could make a case for our specific identity as a protected group, when in reality, I want us to make sure we're remembering that we're all Americans, that we're all Stockton community members, that I'm a New Jersey citizen, and make sure we're putting those things first and focusing on what unites us, not what divides us, and not keeping score. We need to be gracious, give each other the benefit of the doubt, and not jump at any slight. Now, to your point, I have to say, I never felt, once in a while, there was somebody you knew that didn't think it was cool that I was me. But in general, I felt the Republican tent expanding, that, they were more focused on security and affordability than these social issues. And I think, coming out of those COVID lockdowns, that was such a crucible of stress for so many people. And my little example is that I hadn't really thought of, but there was the whole vaccine thing, and some people wanted them and thought other people should have to have them, and some people didn't think they needed them or didn't want to be forced to take them. Very interesting that my body, my choice started to mean something to people who had been maybe against choice with reproductive health, but when it suddenly was their turn to be told they have to take a vaccine and didn't want to, they had an aha moment. And I think that's us coming back to giving each other the space that we need to give each other the benefit of the doubt. Let us find our domestic tranquility, keep government out of our homes, let us pursue our happiness. So I felt like it's been totally fine, not out of the ordinary. I'm proud to be running for United States Senate as Curtis Bashaw, a New Jersey citizen who happens to be a married gay man who likes farming and who's been a lifelong Republican.
All right, thank you. So another question regarding inflation, because inflation is a top issue for all voters, but especially those who are dealing with student debt. Future Stockton graduates are concerned about being able to afford to live in New Jersey. What are your plans to turn around the current economy to make the American dream happen in New Jersey? For Gen Z?
I'm going to flip a switch and everything's going to be all better again. Would you like me to do that now? Look, I think engagement is a huge part of this. You've heard my philosophy. I don't think we spend our way to prosperity, regulate our way. I think some of the policies being put forth by Democrats, Joe Biden's plan that's now Kamala Harris's plan, that's been Andy Kim's plan, they're going to fix inflation by spending more. They tried once with the Inflation Reduction Act. I think it was misnamed. It was sort of Orwellian. It was spending $1 trillion to reduce inflation. That's not how you reduce inflation in my educational experience. I don't think that price caps, then prices go crazy, so you're just going to say to the market, oh, we're going to cap the price. That won't work. They were talking about, I was at the grocer's convention as a speaker. They were doing a candidates forum, and you learn so much when you're a candidate, honestly, getting in there, and you suddenly get introduced to a whole new industry. But, their margins in grocery stores are like a percentage point. Like, you price cap them, you're just going to create food deserts in certain areas. Atlantic City struggled to keep a grocery store. So, you can't, by fiat, control the magic of the market. We can certainly try to have some guardrails as government, but I don't think those policies work. I think affordability will come back with discipline, and New Jersey has a massive affordability issue. I think that we've been involved, and this is my partisan side, in a Democratic monopoly in our state for a long time, and we need divergent points of view to bring back our state. I want to go to Washington. Guess what? New Jersey is 49th out of the 50 states in what we get back from the federal government. But we are the third or fourth largest contributor to the federal government. We are called a donor state because we give a lot more than we get back. Why? I don't like being second to last. I just want to go down there and work to make us better. Let's be 47th. How about 40th? I mean, why are we at the bottom of the barrel? New Jersey, I love this state, and I will work tirelessly to address just those issues because parents across this state are sad that their kids are going to move out of state and their grandkids are going to be somewhere else. They love their town. We have 565 municipalities in New Jersey. The Jersey Shore, all of our traditions and heritage, and they're just sad. So we've got to stop the race to the bottom, and I think part of that starts with this election and electing me.
All right, thank you. So the next question is, you have your Bachelor's of Arts in Literature from Wheaton College in Illinois, along with your MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. If you could go back in time, will you do anything different during your college days?
I don't know that I would have done anything that differently, honestly. I like to learn from choices and use those as you go forward. I was very excited to study the liberal arts. I wanted, and my family really pushed me in that direction. Training is learning how to do something that someone already knows how to do. Thinking will be the tools that you need to solve a new problem that we don't know anything about yet. And so education to me, I read a lot of philosophy, took logic classes. I think the verbal skills that I developed in part and my thinking skills, problem-solving skills came from reading great literature, reading philosophy. So those humanities to me, history, are very important. My business school was a training program. It was a professional school. I learned how to do accounting. I learned net present value, IRR. I learned stuff that they could teach me. Other classes were more, negotiation was a really great intellectual mind game, how to be better at getting your way in a conversation. But so both of those dynamics, which is why I was interested and said earlier, I think integrating practical programs and training, but making sure you still have some thinking classes that are really getting your brain tooled up so you could address novel problems that creep up that we can't even anticipate right now.
All right. So next question is, many of us here at Stockton University are involved with the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy, and some of us may be interested in becoming a civil servant ourselves. Do you have any advice to share on running for public office?
Don't wait till January to get in a race in November. Join a little sooner. I'll tell you this, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I think I said this earlier, but it's also the most important thing I've ever done. This is a crazy cycle with what's happened in our politics, on the presidential level in New Jersey with Menendez, resignation. It's just been so dramatic. And people are so tense about it. So to run in this cycle, but to be in the heartbeat of our pulsing democracy, to feel it like every day, working, pumping, people thinking about what they're going to do, asking questions, making choices. It's just been such an honor to prepare yourself for this. I think you got to have good energy. You got to be willing to have some thick skin. You're going to be criticized. You're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes. It emphasizes your humanity, and you've got to be, a rock solid person. So it's important. I think if you like people, that's better. I mean, let me tell you, you go to a Main Street fair and they say, drop you off, your campaign drops you off at the bottom of the hill and says, go shake those 2,000 people's hand and introduce yourself. Have fun. And there you are with your little literature. Hi, I'm Curtis Bashaw. I'm running for United States Senate, the Bob Menendez seat. And people look at you and, they want to know what party you're in because they're so quick to have their tribe, right? They're in their camp. And I'm trying to navigate a route that's welcoming to all people to have a conversation. So you got to build a good team. You got to trust your team. And you've got to have thick skin. But boy, oh boy, there's nothing quite like it.
All right, thank you. So our last question is, you're a developer out of Cape May. What are your thoughts on the Last Girls Friendly Society Holiday House on Hughes Street? How should we as voters feel about your stance on religious and historical sites? How will your role as a developer affect your willingness to fight to protect these sites as a senator?
Oh my goodness, I love historic landmarks and preservation. Obviously, I've done huge preservation projects myself. When we did Congress Hall, we took advantage of the investment tax credits that you get if you get your project approved by the National Park Service. That was one of our financing tranches. I think landmarks are important. I helped found a fund called the Fund for Cape May, a nonprofit, when we were getting ready as a community to renovate a big park, Rotary Park. I thought that if we could, the taxpayers could only afford so much, and we wanted to make it nicer. So we set up a public-private partnership. We got people involved to raise money and make it more beautiful. Some said, why do that? There's people that are hungry, or there's the opioid crisis. But I think landmarks matter, public spaces matter, parks matter. Those kinds of things are unifying, I think, for us. They give us a sense of place. So I love that Congress Hall's there. People say, is it haunted? It's 208 years old. I said it's haunted in the best sense of the word because it's spirit-filled with the memories and traditions. When you go to a place where you see a monument that people did something that was going to outlast them, that's a love letter from a past generation saying, we believe in this place. We're going to invest in it for the future. And so I would be a big supporter of making sure we're preserving those landmarks.
All right, anything else we'd like to add on?
No, it sounds like we've used up our time and we've had a good time.
Well, thank you for a great discussion. Let's have a round of applause for Mr. Bashaw and Matthew. We have some time to take questions from the audience now. So Dr. Zappilli, director of the Hughes Center, is going to walk around with microphones for anyone who would like to ask a question.
If you can, state your name and major. Thank you.
I'm Tyler Murnahan from Cape May, and I'll be majoring in sustainable policy. And I want to thank you because I actually used to work for Cape Resorts before at Beach Plum Farms, and I currently serve as the 2024-2025 New Jersey State Future Farmers of America Secretary, where we work with all kinds of farms and agricultural education. So I wanted to ask, how could your work in the Senate help farmers across our state and the whole country and their affordability and their availability to get food for our whole nation? Thank you. And thank you for being here, by the way, too.
Well, thanks, Tyler, and thanks for working at Beach Plum. That's one of my favorite spots. We started that in 2007 because I love the fact that New Jersey's the Garden State. I don't think people are aware of how important agriculture is to the heritage of our state, especially down here in southern New Jersey. Campbell's Soup is in Camden, New Jersey, because we grew the best tomatoes. They came to where the tomatoes were, and they started a national company here. Bird's Eye Food and flash freezing of food was invented in South Jersey. Did you know that frozen spinach is fresher than fresh? Because it gets, I had a factory tour at the Seabrook plant near Bridgeton. It's an amazing thing. Small farming and getting back to microeconomies, I think, are ways for communities to be knit together again and for us to be more sustainable. We truck stuff all over the country. So I'm a big fan of this, and that's why we've lived it and walked the walk. I could force my hotels to buy from Beach Plum. So that made it work. There was a little bit of a command economy there. But the fact is we're figuring out a way to make it work. We now have 80 team members, and I think that, governments at all levels, instead of saying, here's our policies, maybe they help the people starting a business by, first of all, I think there should be incubator periods. So if you're below a certain size, you don't got to worry about, all the registrations and this, that, and the other thing. There's too many regulations or one size fits all. One of my favorite stories, when we were starting to grow Beach Plum, I wanted to raise chickens for meat. Well, we found out that if you raised less than 20,000 chickens for meat, you did not need USDA approval. So we read up on the process, and we, had a sort of an old tent that we used to do the chicken slaughtering. Somebody saw one of our frozen chickens on Instagram, and the county sent us a legal letter saying, you can't do this. And we said, well, we can. We went and met. So they wanted to come inspect it, and they wanted to bring the USDA. And, they were confused because they had only seen chicken processing places close in New Jersey. There were none left in South Jersey. So we were doing something that hadn't been done in a while, and we were doing it in a small way. So they brought the USDA, and these guys arrived in uniforms, and they were even packing heat, keeping government agencies safe. Very formal meeting, and Allie and our farmer and Andrew, our livestock guy, were there with me, and we're walking through the process, and the USDA guy said, well, they're really doing it right. And the health department person, and I don't blame them at all. This is more of a systemic thing. Said, well, but it doesn't look like it should be right. Like, how? And the guy says, look, we don't have jurisdiction. It's less than 20,000 birds. You can either say this is clean or not clean. So she's mulling it over, and I thought to myself, first of all, there's always a reason not to do something. It is always easier for a regulator to say no than yes, because that's the safer answer. They're not going to get in trouble if they say no. And the fact is that I knew that was going on. She was feeling the heat, and I just said, listen, I don't have to do this. I got a bunch of hotels. We're doing great. But I love farming and restoring farming in southern New Jersey. The tripod of the economy down here was tourism, agriculture, and fishing. Fishing is still a huge business. Agriculture's shrunk in our area. So I said, I'm going to let you talk with Allie and Andrew here, and I'm going to leave you guys, because it's really their jobs you're talking about. And you let me know how it goes. And I walked away. And the USDA guy comes by, and he says, wow, that was really well done. And 15 minutes later, we had a deal. Now, what we did for the health department is we said, okay, if this works out for us with this small batch and we're growing, we're going to work with you on our facility to make sure you're happy as we're expanding. That's where I got this thought about this incubator period. And then making government agencies partners, because it's a way to grow. They had, small batch people were starting to do jams and jellies in the area. It was cool to do things in your house, but boy, a lot of them got shut down because of a one-size-fits-all regulation about these HACCP plans. So I pitched the county on, why don't you guys write the HACCP plans for these small entrepreneurs? That's the kind of stuff that I think is important, because I'll tell you, people love Beach Plum, they love the land, they want to get to know the land, they want to know where their food comes from, and I think it's a huge opportunity in New Jersey for us to revitalize our agriculture, and I'm a big fan of that and would work on that.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Ritchie. I'm a business administration major. First of all, I also want to thank you for taking your time and coming to talk to us voters. It's very important to me personally. You mentioned your background. Obviously, I wanted to expand on that because myself, I find in a very similar circumstance. My family currently owns restaurants. We're trying to buy a chain, if you will. And it's something that I'm very passionate about. It's been a dream since I was 5 years old to own a restaurant. And since about 5th grade, when the 2016 election came around and the trend of influencing younger voters started to really ramp up, I've started to slowly delve more into politics. And it's always been a back burner of mine almost to be like, oh, it's a possibility. It's something I care greatly about. How heavily would you say your background in being a business owner and an entrepreneur in a sense in general prepares you for the political field? Because we've seen a trend of businessmen transition to politics and they have their own education in their own field, and it really does correlate to how to make the state that you represent or your governance or your country, if necessary, profitable in sense of business. And if so, would you recommend it to anybody? Thank you very much.
Recommend politics or recommend restaurants? It takes a certain person. I love being in hospitality, but boy, oh boy, there are a lot of moving parts. First of all, you're very labor dependent, and labor is harder and harder to find, especially people that want to do service jobs and will make the commitments for weekends and holidays. But when you create that magic, when you have a buzzy restaurant or a hotel where people are just having a great time, it's magic. And that's what you get to do. We're making memories, but boy, oh boy, the work that we're doing is servants' work. We're chopping vegetables, taking out the trash, cleaning toilets, washing linens, hauling stuff around. It's basic servants' work. And you got to have a servant's heart in the service business, and that's okay. Because hospitality, its root is hospice. That's a place of refuge. And that's what we get to do. So if you're called to that, it's one of the oldest businesses in the world. The Christian story, there was no room at the inn when Jesus was born. That was a really good hospitality person that found them that stable. They went above and beyond to try to take care of that guest. So I think that it's an amazing business, and I think it's spending time in a service business is great preparation to be in any business, because you learn to serve, you bring humility, you understand that some people are going to be mean and some people are going to be so grateful, and that your job is just to make everybody feel at home, to give those people the benefit of the doubt and take the edge off. So, getting into, I think it's a fantastic business. A lot of people have made a lot of money in hospitality and food. I think it's a harder business, but this is why, I can't understand why we've been fighting over immigration for 3 decades. I mean, we've politicized a border that, by conflating the border with immigration, when, to me, a country is entitled to a boundary. It has one by definition. that border or boundary has ports of entries or doors, and those doors should be able to be locked at night. I lock my house at night. Like, why is that a Republican or a Democratic issue for us to have a secure border? Because what's happened is we have, in effect, a backdoor that's cutting the line, that's creating tension in our country, is pitting us against each other unnecessarily. Sure, we need to have an honest conversation about how many people from what countries for what reason, but we need more workers in our country as part of growing our economy and making sure that Social Security works in 35 years. So I think we need to separate it. I think that's a big reason for me, because I love the hospitality industry and I know how burdened it is, and it needs people in it that want to do those service jobs, to have a rung up the ladder towards an American dream. So God bless you for wanting to get into it. I completely understand why you would. Don't lose your dream, but you know, you gotta like serving people. We make it out of here alive? All right.
All right, looks like that's all. Thank you so much again for a really thoughtful conversation, and thank you all for being here in person or for watching online and staying engaged in our democratic process. Take care.
Thank you.